Okay, so we're on the bottom of page 11. We're doing step 12. So we now want to add a data grid view component to your view all results tab. Okay, so we're going to find our data grid view, and I'm going to draw it onto my view all results tab. Okay, there you go. And then for the data source, I'm going to choose under the runners binding source. Sorry, not that one. Under other data sources, project data sources, running club members data set, I'm going to choose race results. Okay. Now I want to uncheck enable adding, and I want enable editing and enable deleting to be checked. Okay. And then to get it to fill the container, are you all watching? To get it to fill the container, I can click on dock in parent container. And that makes it fill that container. Right, then over the page 12 we're on now. Step 13. So in the properties window for the data grid view component, I want to change the name. So I go look for the name property. And I'm going to change it to race results data grid view. Okay. Now I want to edit the columns for it. So I'm going to right click on the data grid view the data grid view there. And I'm going to go into you're going to go edit columns. So for race result ID, we're going to choose more user-friendly headings for everything. Okay, so we're going to look for the header text. And I'm going to change that to race result ID. And then for the runner ID, I'm going to change that to something a bit more user-friendly. So runner space ID. And then for the date, change that to something a bit more user-friendly, capital D, distance, capital D, and placed, capital P. Okay, and then click OK. Right, now we're going to move on to the next tab, which is the Edit Results tab. Okay, we're going to add a label. So there you go, I'm going to add a label. And I'm going to change its text property. So go look for its text property. I'm going to change that to race result ID. Okay. And then go find its name and change its name to race result ID label. Okay. Then I'm going to add a text box. So I'm going to add a text box in there. Okay. I'm going to change go look for its text property. Okay. Sorry, not its text property. Go look for its name property. And change its name property to race result ID text box. So all this renaming gets quite tedious, but the reason for it is that if everything's correctly named, it makes it much easier in your coding later because everything's named correctly. Okay. And also for this particular project that we're doing, There's actually marks allocated to doing this. Okay. And then go look for its read-only property. Okay, it's read-only property. Okay. And change that to true, because I don't want it to be editable. I don't want it to be editable because it's a primary key field. Okay, so the user mustn't be able to change it. Right, then add another label. Okay, and change its text property to runner ID. Okay, and then go look for its name property and change it to runner ID label. Sorry, runner ID label 2, because remember there's another runner ID label. So this one's called runner ID label 2. Then add another text box over there. Okay, and I want to change the text box name. There it is. I want to change its name to runner ID text box 2. Okay. Now this one isn't going to be read only. Why do you think? Sorry? Yeah, we want the user to be able to put stuff in there. But why is that one, why does this one not have to be read only? It's not a primary key, it's a foreign key. You can adjust the foreign key, it would just point to a different record. Okay, so for this label, I want to change its text property to runner ID. No, sorry, we've done that. Which one is date? Okay, and its name to date label. Okay, and then I'm going to add a date picker, date time picker. I'm going to add that on. Okay, and I'm going to change its name to date time picker. Okay. Right, then I'm going to add another label. Okay. And I'm going to change its text to be distance. And then change its name to distance label. Okay. I'm going to add another text box. Okay, and I'm going to change its name to distance text box. Okay. Add another label. Okay, and change its text property to did I skip something? So I think there's a typo with that one. Hey? It should be placed. Okay. So change its text property to placed. And then change its label to, sorry, its name to placed label. Okay. And then I'm going to add a different control. I'm going to add a numeric up down. Okay. A numeric up down. So it's basically just a box where you can add a numeric value into, and it's got up and down buttons, so you can just adjust. If you press the up button, it increases it. If you press the down button, it decreases it. Okay, and go look for its name and change it to placed numeric up down. Okay, so our tab should now look something like that. We just obviously need to neaten it up a little bit. So I'm just going to shift the labels over and get the various text box lined up. Okay, make them all the same length. And then fix up my labels. Okay, how does that look? Is that all right? Okay. Right, over the page, we are now page 13. So we now need to bind the various components in the Edit Results tab to our data source. Okay, so click on Race Result ID text box. Okay, to highlight it, and then in the Properties window, under Data Bindings, we want to bind the text property. So we go to the text property. We want to bind that to the race results binding source, and we want to bind it to the race result ID. Okay, and then for runner ID text box, highlight it, and then under data bindings, we want to bind its text property to race results binding source runner ID. And then for the date time, be careful with this one. Under data bindings, I want to bind its value property to the race results binding source and the date. And then for the distance, under the data bindings, I want to bind that text property to the race results binding source and the distance field. And then for placed, be careful with this one as well. Under data bindings, I want to bind its value to the race results binding source and the placed field. Okay. So what this is doing is it's binding those properties of these to the same properties as in your table. So when you select a particular row in your table, those will show up. When you look in this tab, those will be what show up under this tab, because we've bound those both to the same source. Okay, without us having to code anything. They're bound to the same data source. So whenever I click on a certain row in this table, those values will show up in these components here. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to add a binding navigator. So I go look for a binding navigator. Okay, and just go and drop it on there. Okay, and with that binding navigator, make sure it's highlighted. So I click on it to highlight it, and then in the properties window, I want to change its binding source to the race results binding source. Okay, so the values in those components there are now bound to the same source that this navigator is bound to, which means when I click left and right here, it will cycle through the values in the components because they're linked to the same data source. Okay, right, then over the page, page 14, we want to add a custom button to our binding navigator. So just everyone look up at the screen, please. let's have a look at what I'm clicking. So I'm clicking on that down arrow there to add a custom button. And then I'm going to choose button to add my custom button. Okay. And in the properties window, I want to change its text property to save. And then I want to change its name property to save toolstrip save button 2. Remember, because I've got another one, so I need to give this one a unique name. And then go look at the display style. Go look for the display style property. And I want to change that from image to text. So it's now a text button. Okay. So now my binding navigator should look like that. But you notice it's covering components. So what I want to do is I need to undock it. Okay. So go and look for its dock property. And change its dock property from top to none, which frees it up for you to position wherever you want. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to move it and place it at the bottom like that. Okay. So at this point, we should now be able to build and run our project. Okay. After we've built and run it, we're going to have to add some special code to make the save buttons work. Okay. But let's just build this and run it. So I'm going to click on start. And it might take a little bit of a while to build. And we'll see what happens. Okay, so my build worked and it's now displaying my running application, if you'll excuse the pun. And if I go to the Edit Runners tab, what you'll notice is in the runner ID box I can't type anything because I made it read only. And in the first name, if I add some values, so Bob Doe, his date of birth, I can pick weight, let's say it's 78.2, SA citizen, perhaps yes. Okay. So as I'm adding my values in there, if I go look at the View All Runners tab, or rather click the, okay, so if I click Add New, okay, sorry, I should have done that first. If I clicked Add New and then I started typing things into those fields, okay, if I go look at my data grid view, do you notice that those values start appearing in the data grid view? And the reason for that is the data grid view is bound to the same data source that these components are using. So they're sharing the same data source. That's why when I type things in here, it appears in here. They're both linked to the same, to fields from the same model, in other words. Okay. So if I click plus to make a new record, you can see that it saved that first record, right? Okay. Now that's actually that's persisted back to my database. So that if I go open up the database, I'll see those values in my database. Okay. And this is quite nice. I mean, all of this has happened for us automatically. IDE's handled all of this for us. Okay. There's persistence. There's shared data sources between the components. If I go to the Edit Runners tab here, can you see I can even use the left and right arrows and it cycles through the records? Okay, again, because the navigator is bound to the same source that these are. Alright, but there's something interesting that happens here. Okay, I'd like you all to listen just for a second, please. So just stop what you're doing. So if I close this, okay, and I start the project again, okay, so we'll just wait a second for it to start. Do you notice that none of those records are here? But I told you that it had persisted back to the database. But I've restarted the application and I notice it doesn't have persistence. So if you cast your mind back to the very first thing I told you about when we were linking our database, there was that option. Okay, so every time I'm building the project, it's recopying that database file in and overwriting the original that was in there. Does it make sense? So this is the point where we've now got to fix that. Okay. All right. So to fix this, so we close that. To fix this, we go to the Solution Explorer window. Okay. Remember I told you that the Solution Explorer is where you can see all the files in your project. Okay. And I scroll down and I look for runningclubmembers.accdb. That's our database file. Okay. So I've highlighted it, and then I can go change its properties. So I've highlighted that file, and then in the properties here, okay, do you see where it says copy to output directory? It says copy always. We're just going to change that to copy if newer. And that way it doesn't overwrite the database file every time I rebuild. And now my persistence should work properly. Okay. So if I run the project again, okay, so if I run it again and click the plus, I'm going to add a record here, okay, and then plus to add a new record. Okay, so I've added a few records and you can see them there. Now I'm going to close it and then rebuild and run it again. Ah, apparently not. Okay, that's because there's actually a second step I have to follow, which I forgot about. Okay, so over the page, page 15, step 2. So the data visible in the data grid view components is represented in primary memory by a dataset object, and that dataset object is created from data in the database. The data grid view is sending and receiving data from the dataset object fine. Okay, that's our model. But the dataset object is only receiving data from the database. Okay, so we actually need to add a small update method to our form1 code, which we can call whenever we want to synchronize data in our dataset object in the database. So I was wrong. It wasn't actually persisting into the database. We've got to add a bit of code to do that. Okay. So, however, before we can do this, our dataset object called running club members dataset is made up entirely of generated code at the moment. So that code is private fields, which represent our tables. So we don't actually have access to those fields. So we need to give ourselves access to those fields before we can write some code. Okay. So we need to add ourselves. There's two ways we could do it. We could make them public, or we can code accessor methods for them. Okay, so we're going to leave them private, and I think the more correct thing to do would be to make accessor methods for them. Okay. So to add your own code, you go look in your Solution Explorer, go and look for the running club members dataset.xsd. Okay. Right click on it and go to view code. And I can now see the code for that data set. Okay. Now it has other code. So in C# you get partial classes. Okay, which means the class can actually be built up from 2 or 3 files. So this is just a file representing part of the class, not the whole class. That's why it looks empty. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So in here I can add accessor methods. And that's why it says, do you see that it says partial class? Because it's not a full class definition, it's part of the class definition. Okay. So inside the class, inside the partial class, we add some code. So public runners data table, get runners table is the name of my method. So C# should look quite familiar to you. And I'm going to return table runners. Okay. And then I'm going to add another accessor method. So public, I'm going to call this race, it'll be typed as a race results data table. Okay. And I'm going to call it get race results table. Okay, get race results. And I'm going to return table race results. Okay, there you go. So I've just added 2 accessor methods to get references to the tables, which my update method is going to need. Okay, happy so far? Right, then over the page. So we are now on page 16. We're going to open the code for Form 1. So in your Solution Explorer, look for form1.cs. There it is. Okay. Right click on it and then select View Code. And you can see the code for the form. Do you see it's got a whole bunch of generated code for us so far? Okay. And again, this is a partial class. So most of the generated code for this class is actually in a separate file. Okay. All right, so we want to add an update method to this. So we're going to, under here, add a private method, so private void update runners. Okay. Okay, and then from the runners table adapter, and call its update method. And I'm going to pass it a reference to the runners table. I'm going to use the get method I just made. Okay, so running club members dataset dot get runners table. Okay. And then I'm going to clear the table. So running club members dataset dot get runners table dot clear. Sorry, that was a method, so it should have brackets after it. Dot clear. Okay. And again here, this was also a method, so it should have round brackets after it. Okay. And then I'm going to fill up the table. Okay. So the update method, all right, basically gets the data out of the table and updates it to the adapter. We then have to clear the table and we have to fill it up again. So runners, table adapter, dot fill, and we're going to fill it with the data set using the runners object thing. Okay, and we're going to do exactly the same thing for the race results. Okay, so in fact I think I can probably copy this and then just adjust some stuff. So we're going to update race results. And it will be the race results table adapter. Okay. And it won't be the runners table I'll need to get, it will be dot get race results table. Okay. And then the running club members data set dot get race results table dot clear. And then the race results table adapter dot fill using the running club members data set dot race results. Okay, so that's your two update methods. Right, over the page, we now need to add some code to get our save buttons working. Basically, you're going to click on the save button, and it's going to call these update methods. Okay, which will persist it back to the database. Okay, so to do this, we'll start with the save button in the edit runners tab. Okay, so we go to the form design. You see there's the button there. We can double click on it and it will take us to the event handling code for that button. Okay, so in there I want to add this code. So int car record index is equal to was it the right save button? That wasn't, was it? Okay, sorry, I'm going to leave that code alone for now. Go back to my design view. It was in my edit runners tab. Okay, so my edit runners tab, I'm going to double click on the save button to go to the event handling code. Here you go. So int car record index is equal to the runner's binding source okay dot position. Okay, so that's the current position. Remember, using those left and right arrows, it could cycle through the records. The position is that value, it's which record it happens to be on. Okay. And then I'm going to say runners binding source dot end edit. Okay. So that forces it to go out of edit mode. Okay. And it's a method, so it needs round brackets. And then I'm going to call my update runners method, which I created. Okay. And then I'm going to set the position back to what it was before. Because what happens is when you end the edit, or rather when we call the update runners method, it put us back at position 1 or position 0. So to get back to the position where we left off, that's why we stored it, and we're going to send ourselves back there. Okay. So we're going to say, right, runners binding source dot position is equal to current record index. So that just resets it back to what it was. Okay. So I'm going to copy this code because I'm going to probably be able to just reuse it for the next one. So in my form design under edit results, I'll double click on that save button, and I can go and put the same code again in, but obviously just adjust a few things. Okay. I've actually jumped forward to page 18, so we're going to jump back again. Okay. So in current record index, or should we perhaps just go step by step? Okay, let's go step by step. We'll sort that out later. Okay, let's go back. We are back on page 17. And we want to make the other buttons work. So if you go to your design view under the edit runners tab, I've got my save button working now. Okay. But now I want my delete button to work. Okay. So double click on the delete button to go to its event handler code. There it is. And what you're going to do is, again, just store the current record index. Okay. Then I'm going to call my update runners method, and then so the update runners method will actually just remove it out. Okay. And then set the position back to what it was, but the problem is because I removed the current record, it's now actually jumped forward. So I've got to actually subtract 1. Okay, so I'm going to set the position to be equal to current record index minus 1. Okay. Right, now I want the add new button to work. So go back to the design view. There's the add new button. If you have a look up there, it's the yellow plus. So if I double click on it, then I can add code to make that work. So basically, again, I just call the update runners method, and then the runners binding source dot add new. Okay. All right, so we've made all those buttons work for that one. Okay, so now we want to move on to the edit results table. So in your design view, under the edit results tab, Again, we're going to do exactly the same thing to get the save button to work, the delete button to work, and the add new button to work. Okay, so double click on the save button to go to the code, and I suspect we can copy this and then adjust stuff. Right, so current record index, it will be race results binding source dot position again. This will be race results binding source. This will be race results binding source. Okay. Dot position. Okay, and this will be obviously update race results. Okay, then go back to your design view, double click on the delete button, and again I'm going to go steal the code from the other delete button and just adjust it. So it'll be race results binding source. Okay, it wasn't the best idea. Dot position and then update race results. And then it's the race results binding source. Okay, so that should sort that out. Yes? Okay. Go back to your design view and then finally do it for your add new button. And again, I can just steal the code from the other add new method and just adjust it so it's update race results, and it's the race results binding source. Okay, so that's all our buttons working. Great. Okay, so that should all be working, and those buttons should all be working now. So if I run my project, and wait for it to build. Okay, there you go. So in my edit runners tab, let's add a record, let's add some details, the weight, click plus. I should have clicked that first. Okay. And then if I click plus, it goes to add a new record, and it saved the previous one, which is much more preferable behavior. Okay. And let's add someone else. John Doe. Okay. If you click save, it saves him but doesn't go to add a new record. Now let's go back to the first record and see if we can delete that record. So delete it. Yes, it deleted nicely. Okay. And then if I go to my edit results, let's go see if these work. So click the add new. Runner ID, let's say it's 2, it's that guy. And go and add the date, add the distance, say placed first, click save. You now see it's added that record as well. Okay, so it all seems to be working all right. And if I close it and run it again, I want to see whether my persistence is working properly. Okay, so I run it again, and it seems like my data has persisted properly, which is nice. Okay, right, but we are not done yet, because we want to add a search functionality. Okay, so we are now on page 19. So we now need to add the ability to search for individual records of both runners and race results. So we need to start by adding the necessary controls to our form. Okay. So in the Edit Runners tab, okay, I'm going to add a label. Okay, which is over here. And I'm going to change its text. I'm going to change it to runner ID to search for. And its name. And I'm going to change to runner ID search label. Okay. Then I'm going to add a text box next to it. Okay. And its name, I'm going to change to runner ID search text box. Okay. And then I'm going to add a button next to it. So I'm going to go find a button. I'm going to put that in. And I'm going to change its text. So I'm going to go look for its text property. I'm going to change that to search. And then I'm going to look for its name property and change its name property to runner ID search button. Okay. There you go. And then in the edit results table, I'm going to do the same. But what might be easier is if maybe I can just copy those components and then just change their properties. Okay. So let's click there, click there while holding down Control. So you've got them all highlighted. Right click, copy, go to the Edit Results tab, right click in there, click Paste. Okay, there they are, position them underneath, okay, and then just go and rename them and change their properties. Okay. So this one, the runner ID search label, I'm going to change that to race ID to search for. Okay. And then I'm going to go and change its name to race result ID search label. Okay, then the text box, I'm going to change its name to race result ID search text box. Okay. Then the button, its text can stay the same. I'm just going to change its name to race result ID search button. Okay, there you go. Okay, we're now on page 20 and we just need to add the code to make those buttons work. Okay, so under Edit Runners, double click on the search button to go to the event viewer event code. Okay, and what we're going to do is declare an int, let's call it found index. Okay, and make that equal to runners binding source dot find. So there's a search method built for us. Okay, and as a string, I give it the field name, which will be runner ID, and I give it the value I'm searching for, which will be runner ID search box. run ID search text box dot text. So it's text property. Okay. And then just semicolon to end that line off there. So that will give me the found index. That's the index number in the data source of where it found that record. Okay. Then I just need an if statement. So if found index is more than or equal to 0, then just set the position in the binding source to be that found index, which will make it display in the component. Okay. So run as binding source dot position equal to found index. Okay. So basically what that does is that it goes and finds that record in the binding source and then sets the position of that binding source to be that position. So it's as if you navigated to it using the navigator. And that's the record that ends up being displayed. If it didn't find it, then it just doesn't change. Okay. Of course, you might want to add a little error message or something if you wanted to, but we're just doing it this way. Okay. So if it doesn't find it, we just don't do anything. Okay. Right, so then go back to your design view under edit results. Let's do the same thing for the other search button. So double click on it. Again, I can just copy the code and adjust it. So found index, it will be race results binding source. Okay. And the field will be race result ID, and it will come from the race results ID search text box. Okay, and then set the race results binding source.set position to be the found index. Okay, so we've completed our project. Let's just build and run and see if it all works. And then we are going to run over a bit of time. I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to just very briefly show you how to do the documentation and then we'll be done. Okay. Right, so do you see that's very nice? My runners have persisted. Okay, so in the edit runners, let's just add another one. So we go add new, let's call it Johnny Doe. Okay, and click save. So if I look in here, let's see if we can search for John Doe. Okay, so if you go into edit runners, and his ID was 2, right? Okay, so I'm going to put in 2 there, and then click search. Okay, and it found him and displayed him. It set the binding source position. It's set to his position, and that's why he's now displaying his details. Okay, if you want to, you can change this to work whichever field you want to search for. So if you go and look at the code here, if we close that, if you go and look at the code, do you see that for the found index, I gave it the field name. You could put whatever field name you wanted to actually search there, and it would search it based on that field. Okay, so if you wanted to adjust it, you could do that. It's not too difficult to change. Are we happy with that? Okay. Right, I'd like us to quickly do the documentation. So if you go and look in that folder, in this release folder, there's a template for the documentation. Okay, so just copy that and put it into your project folder like here. Okay, and then go and open it up, and there's 1 or 2 things you just need to add in here. Okay, so basically you choose your topic, because you're not going to do the same one as this, and your topic that you're going to choose, you need some topic where you're going to have 2 tables with one with a one is to many relationship. Okay, so perhaps you choose pupils and houses. Okay, or something like that. Okay, so you choose your topic. Okay, so I'm going to choose, my topic will be pizzas. Okay, and my name is Mr. Baumeister. Then I remember my SQL statements. Okay, so I just go, I go to my database and I want to copy and paste my create statements in. Okay, so there's my, so go to design view. That was my first one. Just going to copy it into my documentation. That was for my table 1. Okay. Alright. It's looking very nice so far. Okay. There you go. SQL statement for the second table. So I just go to the design view here, copy it, okay, and then go to here, paste it in, okay, create some space for myself, okay, probably want to go into the next page. I add my screenshots, so start, I'm going to go use my snipping tool. Okay, so it's under accessories. There's your snipping tool. Okay. Alright, so you go to your screen. Okay. And I take a snip of each screen. Okay. And I put that one in. Okay, and I do one for the next one. Okay, oh, did I do edit results? Okay, view all runners, take a snip. Okay, and go and put it in. That was actually the first one. Okay, add my second one, which is my edit runners. Quickly take a snip. Okay. Right, there you go. Copy it and paste it in. And then finally the third one, I go to my project. Take a snip. Well, I don't want to do it yet. Actually, the third tab there. Take a snip. There you go. Okay. Put in my documentation over there. Alright. Obviously, I would neaten things up. Okay, and be a bit more careful in how I take my snips. And I might even take my snips of it while the program is running. They'd probably look a bit better. Eh? Okay, and that is my documentation done. Okay, and I would hand in my project and I would get 100%. Okay.